The stars of the galaxy had long witnessed the rise and fall of many civilizations, but none had ever dared to challenge the mighty Zir Empire, an ancient and powerful force that spanned across hundreds of worlds. For centuries, the empire had grown, absorbing countless species into its fold, most kneeling, most afraid, most willing to bow before its strength. But then there was Earth. When the first Zir emissary ship arrived, the people of Earth were still in the early stages of their journey into space. They had only just begun to explore beyond their solar system, discovering new planets and gathering knowledge. The news that an emissary from the Empire had arrived on Earth's doorstep was both exciting and terrifying. The Zir Empire had sent a representative, a creature called Valhar, a tall figure of dark, shimmering skin and an unsettling calm. With him came an array of symbols, glowing, intimidating, and designed to make an impact. His message was simple. "Submit," he said. "The Zir Empire is eternal. Join us, and you will be granted protection. Refuse, and your civilization will be wiped from existence. This is your only choice." The world stood still as the news spread. Leaders from across the globe gathered. They were united in one thing: fear. The Empire was unlike anything they had encountered. A single fleet from the Empire could wipe out entire star systems, their weapons capable of tearing apart planets with terrifying precision. The United Nations quickly called for an emergency meeting. Ilara Hayes, a brilliant young scientist and a rising star in Earth's interstellar program, watched the broadcast with a mixture of dread and curiosity. She had long known that Earth's future lay in the stars, but this moment, this decision, could change everything. Ilara's mind raced. The planet was not ready for war, and they couldn't hope to stand against the Empire's overwhelming might. Yet she couldn't believe Earth would simply kneel. Humans were nothing if not stubborn, driven by an inner force to stand tall even in the face of overwhelming odds. In the emergency session, world leaders debated, their voices rising with tension. Some pushed for diplomacy, hoping to find a peaceful way to coexist. Others, however, were already writing Earth's obituary, convinced that resistance was futile. "Ilara, what do you think?" A voice interrupted her thoughts. It was President Rayner, a man who had always respected her intellect. Ilara stood, her mind calm yet focused. "I believe we can't give in. Not like this. The Empire might have the power to destroy us, but we have something they don't: the will to fight." A murmur of surprise passed through the room. The world had never faced anything like this. An entire species, an entire planet, was at risk, and yet this young scientist was speaking of resistance. Her words, though soft, carried an undeniable power. "Are you suggesting we go to war?" Another voice asked. "We are outmatched in every way." Ilara's gaze never wavered. "No, not war, not yet. But we can't simply bow down to them either. There must be a way to show them that Earth is not theirs to claim." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I have an idea. A plan." The room fell silent, every eye on her. Ilara continued. "I've been studying old Earth technologies, ones we thought lost to time. There's a system, an AI, codenamed Prometheus. It was built long ago by a group of Earth's best minds. Its power was beyond anything we could imagine, and it was hidden before we even understood what it could do." Whispers spread through the room. Prometheus was nothing more than a myth to most people. Few knew its true purpose, but Ilara had researched it for years. If she could access it, she believed it could provide the guidance Earth needed. President Rayner leaned forward, intrigued. "And this Prometheus, what can it do?" "It can predict movements, learn from every battle, and guide us in ways we can't even comprehend. But there's a catch. It's not just a tool. It's a consciousness, and we will have to trust it completely," Ilara explained, her voice steady. Some leaders were wary, reluctant to place their faith in an unknown entity. Others saw it as their last hope. The tension in the room grew thicker. But there was no time to waste. Earth's future hung in the balance. "We have no other choice," Ilara added quietly. "We cannot kneel. Not today. Not ever." For the first time since the Zir Empire's emissary had arrived, there was a sense of unity in the room. Not all were convinced, but one thing was clear: Earth would not go down without a fight. It was time to stand, to refuse submission, and to face the unknown with the hope that their resistance could spark something greater. The lights flickered as the decision was made. Earth would prepare for what was to come, and the Zir Empire, for the first time, would face something it had never anticipated: humanity's unwavering resolve. The decision had been made. Earth would resist the Zir Empire. But that decision came with a heavy price. Earth was still a young power in the galaxy, with no allies to call upon. The Zir Empire, on the other hand, controlled a vast network of worlds, each one more powerful and advanced than any of Earth's colonies. Humanity had no choice but to reach out to the stars for help. Ilara Hayes knew that Earth's survival depended on more than just technology. It depended on alliances. But who could they trust? Who would risk everything to join a cause that was still unproven? The first call was made to the Riverians. They were a species that had long lived under the Empire's control, their homeworld a distant planet in the outer rim of Zir territory. The Riverians had always been oppressed, their people forced into servitude by the Empire's iron grip. For centuries, they had kept their heads down, hoping the Empire would leave them in peace. But the Empire had only ever taken more. Ilara knew the Riverians were desperate for freedom. She didn't need to speak their language to understand their pain. Their history of rebellion was whispered across the stars, and it was clear: if anyone would be willing to fight the Empire, it was them. The first message was sent from Earth's new communication relay station, a large beacon placed on the edge of the solar system to avoid detection by the Empire. The message was simple but clear: "We will fight. Will you join us?" For days, Earth waited, holding its breath. News from the stars was slow. Every hour felt like an eternity. But just when hope seemed to fade, a reply came through. The Riverians were willing to meet. It wasn't a promise to join the cause. It was only a promise to talk. But it was a start. Ilara led the team that traveled to the distant Riverian colony. It was a long journey, and the tension on the ship was thick. No one knew what the Riverians would say. But Ilara had a plan. She knew they couldn't rely only on weapons or technology. They needed something more: trust. And in the darkest hours, trust was often the only thing that could light the way. When the ship arrived at the Riverian colony, Ilara was struck by the sight. The planet was beautiful: green forests, blue oceans, and tall mountains. Yet there was a quiet sadness in the air, a feeling that something had been broken. The once proud Riverian cities were now abandoned or in ruin, hidden deep beneath the surface to avoid detection by the Empire. Ilara couldn't help but feel the weight of their struggle. The Riverian leader, a tall, sharp-eyed individual named Katra, greeted them in a small underground chamber. Her voice was soft, but her eyes burned with a fierce intensity. "You come here to ask for help," Katra said, her tone cautious but not hostile. "But why should we risk everything for you? The Empire has crushed us before, and we've seen the price of defiance." Ilara stood tall. She understood the pain in Katra's voice, the fear of loss that lingered in her eyes. But she also knew that together, they could change the future. "You've already lost so much," Ilara said. "The Empire has taken your freedom, your dignity, your hope. But you still have something left. And so do we. If we fight together, we can break the chains that hold us both." Katra was silent for a long time, her eyes never leaving Ilara's face. The room was still, the only sound the faint hum of machinery around them. Finally, Katra spoke. "We've lost everything, but we've never lost our will. Perhaps we can stand together. But know this: if we join you, it will not be easy. The Empire will come for us. And if we lose, it will be the end." Ilara nodded. We know the risks, but we also know the cost of surrender. We fight, or we perish. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with the weight of what they meant. After a long pause, Katra finally extended her hand. We'll fight with you. It was a beginning. But Ilara knew it wasn't enough. The Riverians were only one piece of the puzzle. The Empire's grip stretched far across the galaxy, and Earth would need more allies if they were to stand a chance. Over the next several months, Earth sent out more messages, reaching out to neighboring species and colonies. Some were hesitant, afraid of the Empire's wrath. Others were curious, seeing the spark of rebellion in Earth's eyes. Slowly, word spread of the new resistance. More and more species began to join, each one carrying its own story of suffering under the Empire's rule. The Xer Empire, however, was not idle. Their spies began to watch Earth's movements, sensing something stirring in the dark corners of the galaxy. But humanity and its allies were already planning. They had found something the Empire had never counted on: unity in the face of fear. The first victory came when the newly formed alliance sabotaged one of the Empire's key supply stations in a distant system. It was a small blow, but it sent a powerful message. Earth and its allies would not be crushed so easily. The Riverians were the spark, but now the flame was growing. And as Earth's resistance grew stronger, the Empire's sense of control began to waver. The day had come. After months of preparation, Earth and its newfound allies were ready to face the Xer Empire. They knew that their victory was far from certain, but there was no turning back. The Empire's fleet was vast, and their technology was far more advanced than anything humanity had ever seen. But they had something the Empire could not predict: the willingness to fight, to risk everything for freedom. Ilara Hayes stood at the command center of the Earth fleet, her heart racing. The room was filled with people from many different species: Riverians, humans, and others who had joined their cause. They had all come together for this moment. The stars outside the windows were a silent witness to the turning point in history. Ilara looked at the holographic display in front of her. It showed the Xer fleet, a massive force, moving toward Earth's outer colonies. "We can't take them head-on," said Katra, the Riverian leader. Her sharp eyes studied the map, her face a mask of determination. "Their fleet is too powerful. A direct assault would be suicide." Ilara nodded. "That's exactly why we're not going to fight them directly. We're going to outsmart them." The plan was risky. It relied on one thing: surprise. Earth's ships, though smaller and less advanced, had been equipped with stealth technology, an old concept that had been revived thanks to the Prometheus Eye. The Empire's sensors were designed to track large ships, not the small, agile ones Earth had created. "We'll split our forces into smaller groups," Ilara continued. "We'll use the nebula in the Xer system to hide our movements. Once we're close enough, we'll launch a surprise attack." The nebula was a vast cloud of gas and dust, a natural shield against the Empire's scanners. It was the perfect hiding place. The Xer Empire, used to dominating every battle with sheer numbers, had never expected anyone to fight so unpredictably. Ilara's plan would test the Empire's ability to adapt. The fleet prepared, and for hours, Earth's ships moved quietly through the dark, their engines running on minimal power to avoid detection. Ilara watched the progress on the command screen, her fingers lightly tapping on the console. There was no room for error. They had one chance to strike. As they neared the nebula, Ilara felt the tension in the air. The ships were moving silently, hidden within the cloud. They would have to wait for the right moment to strike, and that moment would come soon. Suddenly, the first wave of Xer ships appeared, their massive forms outlined against the stars. They were the advanced warships, built for strength and speed, each one bristling with weapons. Ilara could see them on the screen, heading straight for Earth's colonies. "They've detected us," someone shouted from the console. "They're moving in for the kill." But it was too late for the Empire. Ilara had anticipated this move. At her signal, the Earth fleet made its move. The smaller ships darted out from the nebula, weaving through the Zir fleet like shadows, faster than the Empire's massive warships could react. "Fire!" Ilara shouted. The Earth ships unleashed their weapons, targeting the Empire's weaker spots: fuel tanks, shield generators, and communication systems. The Zir ships were caught off guard, their defenses failing before they could even understand what was happening. The Empire's forces were in chaos. Some ships began to retreat, while others struggled to adjust their weapons to counter the surprise attack. But Earth's fleet wasn't done yet. They knew this was only the beginning. The first wave of attacks had created confusion, but they had to keep the pressure on. A second wave of ships, armed with EMP weapons, charged at the Zir fleet, disabling the Empire's communications and causing more disarray. Without their network, the Empire's fleet was isolated, and Earth's forces could pick them off one by one. On the ground, the Resistance fighters, Ravarians, humans, and others, fought fiercely to protect their colonies. The Empire's landing forces, though numerous, had underestimated Earth's resolve. The people of Earth, fighting alongside their new allies, defended their homes with everything they had. Buildings were fortified, and weapons were used in ways the Empire never expected. Humanity had no fear of losing. It had already lost everything once, and now it was determined to protect what it had gained. Back in space, the battle was reaching its peak. Earth's fleet had inflicted heavy damage on the Empire's warships, but the Zir weren't going to give up easily. Their reinforcements arrived. More ships, more weapons. The odds were turning against them, and Ilara could feel the weight of that on her shoulders. But then something unexpected happened. A signal from the Empire's command ship came through, crackling with static. It was the Empire's High Commander, Valhar, the same being who had come to Earth with their ultimatum. "This is not possible." Valhar's voice echoed across the communication channels. "How can a species like yours defeat us?" Ilara smiled, though her heart was still racing. "We're not defeated yet," she said calmly, "and we never will be." The Zir commander's voice faltered. For the first time, the Empire's confidence wavered. They had underestimated Earth. They had underestimated humanity's spirit. As the battle raged on, Earth's forces fought with a fierce determination that the Empire had never seen before. The first strike was a success. Against all odds, Earth had struck a blow against the seemingly invincible Zir Empire. It wasn't a final victory, but it was a beginning. And for the first time, the Empire realized that Earth would not bow to them. The first victory was only the beginning. Earth had struck the Zir Empire, and though the battle was far from over, it had sparked something deep within the galaxy, a fire of rebellion that could not be extinguished. The news of Earth's bold defiance spread quickly, reaching planets and colonies far from the front lines. For the first time in centuries, the people of many worlds began to believe that the Empire could be defeated. Ilara Hayes watched the news reports with mixed emotions. The victory was bittersweet. Yes, they had hurt the Empire, but the cost had been high. The Empire was regrouping, and they would come back stronger. Earth had proven it could fight, but the road ahead was still uncertain. The alliance between Earth and the Ravarians had grown stronger, and more species had joined their cause. The United Federation of Free Worlds was born, a loose coalition of planets and species united in their goal to rid the galaxy of the Empire's grip. But forming an alliance was one thing, keeping it together was another. Earth's leaders, along with the Ravarian representatives, met to discuss their next move. It was clear that the Empire would not simply let them go. They would need a strategy that involved not just military might, but also the power of unity and diplomacy. The question was, how could they maintain the trust of their allies, especially with so many different species and cultures? Katra, the Ravarian leader, spoke up. "The Empire is ruthless. If we are to succeed, we must strike at their heart. We need to take out their main fleet, the one that controls all the systems." Ilara nodded thoughtfully. But that fleet is heavily guarded. We'll need more than just firepower. We'll need information. We need to know everything about their movements, their weak points. That's where Prometheus comes in. The AI system. Prometheus had been instrumental in the first attack. It could analyze the Empire's tactics and predict their next moves with incredible precision. Ilara knew that if they could get close enough to the Empire's central command, Prometheus could give them the edge they needed to win. But the challenges were many. The Empire had already begun to tighten its grip on the systems it controlled. The galaxy was growing darker, and the once quiet rebellions on other planets were now full-blown uprisings. The Zir Empire responded by crushing any resistance with even more force, using fear and destruction to try to bring the galaxy back under their control. Yet, despite the fear, something remarkable was happening. The oppressed species, Reverians, humans, and others, were beginning to see the power of their unity. There were whispers of hope, of victory. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for freedom. One of the key victories came when a small but powerful fleet of Alliance ships managed to liberate a Zir-controlled planet. The planet, once rich in resources, had been enslaved by the Empire for decades. But the people, led by a group of brave rebels, had managed to defeat the Zir forces and take back their world. It was a huge win, and it sent a clear message. The Empire was not invincible. The rebellion's success was not without its struggles. The Zir Empire was not easily shaken, and it responded with brutal counterattacks. Earth's people, along with their allies, knew that they were in a race against time. Every victory they earned came at a cost, and every loss was felt deeply. But the spirit of resistance continued to grow. The Zir Empire may have been powerful, but they had never understood humanity's drive. Earth's people, having fought for survival for so long, had a resilience that no other species could match. Ilara stood before a holographic map, her mind focused. The next move was critical. They had to strike at the heart of the Empire, but they couldn't do it alone. Earth's fleet was not large enough to take on the full might of the Empire's forces. They needed the other worlds to rise up with them. "We can do this," Ilara said, her voice firm. "We have the strength of unity. We have each other. And we have Prometheus." Katra, standing beside her, placed a hand on her shoulder. "We fight together. We have to. The Zir may have the power to destroy us, but they will never have the strength to break us. Not as long as we stand united." Ilara smiled, her resolve hardening. The people of Earth and their allies had chosen their path. They had chosen to fight for something greater than themselves. The fires of rebellion had been lit, and there was no turning back. The Zir Empire may have been vast and powerful, but Earth and its allies had something they would never understand: the will to fight for freedom, no matter the cost. The alliance was strong, and with each passing day, more worlds joined the cause. As the galaxy held its breath, Ilara knew that the coming battles would be unlike anything they had faced before. But she also knew one thing for certain: Earth would never kneel. Not now, not ever. The fire of rebellion was burning bright, and it was spreading across the stars. The alliance had grown stronger with each passing day. Earth and its allies had made their mark on the galaxy, but they knew that the Zir Empire's wrath would not be far behind. The next move was clear. They had to take the fight to the heart of the Empire. It would be dangerous, but it was the only way to truly threaten the Zir and bring an end to their reign of terror. Ilara Hayes stood in the war room, her eyes focused on the holographic map of the galaxy. The Zir Empire's central command was located on a heavily fortified world known as Korath, deep in the heart of their territory. It was a fortress world, surrounded by layers of defense, both in space and on the surface. Getting there would be a challenge, but Ilara was determined to see it through. "We can't just attack Korath head-on," Ilara said, her voice calm but resolute. "The Empire will have already prepared for us. We need a way to get past their defenses without being detected." Katra, the Reverian leader, stepped forward. We've studied the Empire's fleet patterns. They're strong, but they're predictable. They won't expect a stealth attack. We can use their arrogance against them. The plan was risky, but it was their best chance. Earth's fleet, now joined by allies from various worlds, would approach Korath from an unexpected angle, slipping through the gaps in the Empire's defenses. The first wave would be small, only a handful of ships, each equipped with advanced stealth technology. Their mission: to sneak past the Zer's outer defenses and plant a signal beacon deep within Korath's core, so the rest of the fleet could follow. Ilara knew the stakes were high. If the signal beacon failed, the entire fleet would be lost. But if it succeeded, it would give them the element of surprise. And that could make all the difference. The night before the mission, Ilara stood alone on the observation deck of the fleet's flagship, the Independence. The stars stretched out before her, vast and endless. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, the years of fighting, the countless sacrifices, and the lives lost. The road to this point had been long, but Earth's people had never given up. And now, with the galaxy watching, they were about to take their greatest step forward. Tomorrow, we make our stand, Ilara whispered to herself. No turning back now. The next day, the fleet prepared for the mission. The first wave of ships, led by Ilara herself, was ready to depart. The small fleet of stealth ships would make their way through the Empire's territory, hiding in the shadows of distant moons and asteroid fields. Their goal was simple: get to Korath without being detected. The journey was tense. Every move had to be calculated, every decision precise. Earth's fleet moved quietly, engines at minimal power, staying out of the Zer Empire's radar range. The silence was overwhelming. Ilara felt the weight of the mission press down on her shoulders. The stakes were higher than ever. If they failed, it would be the end for them. But if they succeeded, it could change everything. As they neared Korath, the Empire's defenses loomed large. The world was surrounded by a ring of battle stations, each one armed to the teeth. But Earth's ships slipped through the gaps, moving in ways the Empire had never anticipated. Then, it happened. One of the ships detected something, a faint anomaly in the sensor readings. It was a Zer scout ship, moving too close for comfort. Ilara's heart raced. They had to act fast. "Ilara, they found us," shouted a voice over the comms. "Stay calm," Ilara ordered. "We've trained for this." Evasive maneuvers. Now, the ships darted through the asteroid field, weaving between rocks and debris as they tried to lose the scout ship. The Zer were persistent, but the Earth fleet was faster, using their knowledge of the area to stay one step ahead. After several minutes of tense maneuvering, they lost the scout ship. "That was too close," Katra's voice came through the comm. "We have to keep moving. We can't risk them knowing we're here." Ilara nodded, feeling the adrenaline surge through her. "Keep going. We're almost there." They approached Korath's atmosphere, and the plan was set in motion. The lead ships began to descend toward the surface, cloaking themselves as they moved into the planet's shadow. The others followed closely behind. It was a risky maneuver, but it was their best chance to reach the core of the Empire's command. The surface of Korath was an industrial wasteland, covered with towering structures and vast factories. It was a place built for war, a place where the Zer Empire built their weapons and their ships. As the fleet neared the planet's surface, Ilara could see the glow of the factories below. This was where the heart of the Empire beat. Here, they would plant the signal beacon that would guide the rest of the fleet. With precision, they landed on a hidden platform deep within the heart of Korath's industrial zone. The stealth ships touched down, and the crew quickly began to set up the beacon. Every second counted. The Zer Empire was known for its efficiency, and they could arrive at any moment. "Ilara, the beacon is ready," one of the engineers reported. "We can activate it now." Ilara nodded. "Do it." The beacon hummed to life, sending a signal deep into the heart of the Empire's communications network. It was small, almost invisible, but it would be enough. The rest of the fleet would be able to follow it directly to Korath's heart. But they had to get back to their ships and escape before the Zair could detect them. As Ilara and her crew made their way back to the stealth ships, she couldn't help but feel the weight of what they had just done. They had crossed the line into the heart of the enemy's territory, and they had planted the seed for their victory. It wasn't over yet, but the first step had been taken. The signal was sent, and the fleet had to act quickly. Earth's forces had placed the beacon deep within the heart of the Zair Empire's stronghold on Korath. Now the rest of the Alliance's ships could follow the signal directly to the planet. But the Zair were never far behind, and the window of opportunity was closing fast. Ilara Hayes stood in the command room of the Independence, staring at the blinking light on the map. The beacon had been activated, but the Zair would soon realize what had happened. The Alliance's time was running out. Earth's ships and their allies, still hidden in the shadow of Korath's moons, were waiting for the signal to begin their final push. Ilara, the beacon is working, Katra said, looking over her shoulder at the screen. We're receiving the coordinates now. The fleet can move in. Ilara nodded, her fingers lightly tapping on the console. It's now or never. If we hesitate, the Empire will wipe us out before we can even get close. We need to move fast. Across the galaxy, the Alliance ships were preparing for battle. They had waited for this moment for so long. The rebellion was no longer just a group of scattered factions. Now, they were a unified force, a challenge the Empire could no longer ignore. The fleet moved, slipping through the asteroid fields and the dark stretches of space that had once hidden them from the Empire's sensors. The Zair's defenses were formidable, but with the beacon guiding them, the Alliance could move quickly, avoiding detection. As the fleet approached Korath, the atmosphere became tense. Ilara could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Every decision from this point on would determine the future of the galaxy. The Alliance was small compared to the Zair Empire's might, but their determination was unmatched. They had been underestimated, and now they would show the Empire just how wrong they had been. Everyone, stay sharp, Ilara commanded. We don't know what we'll face when we reach Korath, but we're ready for anything. The ships continued their silent journey, moving closer and closer to Korath's dark surface. The planet's massive, glowing factories were visible now, huge structures that seemed to stretch endlessly into the sky. These were the places where the Zair built their weapons, their warships, and their machines of destruction. It was here, in the heart of the Empire's war machine, that the Alliance would make their stand. We're almost there, Katra said. The defenses are coming online. The Empire is about to notice us. Ilara's heart pounded in her chest. This was it. There would be no second chances. If the fleet was caught, the battle would be lost before it even began. But she had faith in her crew, in the alliance they had built, and in the plan they had set in motion. Then the alarm blared across the ship. Zair ships detected. A voice shouted over the comms. They've spotted us. Ilara's eyes narrowed. All ships, engage stealth mode. We need to get as close to the surface as possible before they can lock onto us. The fleet began to move faster, slipping through the Empire's defenses with precision. The Zair ships were vast, their sensors powerful, but Earth's fleet was fast and agile, using every trick they had learned during their months of training and preparation. As they descended toward Korath's surface, the planet's massive defense guns opened fire. The sky was lit up with explosions as the Alliance ships dodged and weaved through the enemy fire. The Zair Empire was not going to let them get any closer without a fight. We need to take out those defense guns, Ilara said. If we don't, we'll never make it through the atmosphere. Katra's voice crackled through the comms. We're already on it. A small team is infiltrating the surface and planting charges on the main guns. We'll disable their defenses. Ilara's mind raced. Keep moving. We'll support you from the air. The fleet continued to descend, closer and closer to Korath's surface. Every second was crucial. The Zair were powerful, but they had never expected this kind of resistance. The Empire had relied on fear and domination, not on the courage of those who fought for freedom. And now, Earth and its allies were proving just how wrong the Empire had been. The ground shook as the charges planted by the surface team went off, disabling the main defense guns on Korath. The planet's defenses began to crumble, and the Alliance ships pushed forward. The sky above Korath was filled with the flashing lights of battle, but Earth's fleet was gaining ground. "We're in," Katra shouted through the comm. "The defenses are down. We have a clear path to the command center." Ilara's breath caught in her throat. They had done it. The impossible had become reality. Earth's forces, with the help of their allies, had breached the Zair Empire's greatest stronghold. The battle was far from over, but this was a turning point, a moment in history that would be remembered for generations to come. "Everyone, this is it," Ilara said, her voice steady and calm. "This is our chance to finish what we started. For Earth, for freedom, for every world that has suffered under the Empire's rule. We fight together. We win together." The Alliance pushed forward, determined to bring the final blow to the heart of the Zair Empire. The future of the galaxy was in their hands. The final push had begun. Ilara Hayes and the Alliance fleet had breached the heart of the Zair Empire. Korath's defenses were crumbling, and the once impenetrable fortress was now vulnerable. It was a moment of triumph, but also of uncertainty. The battle was not over yet. The Zair's main command center still stood, and that was where the final fight would take place. The fleet descended into the atmosphere of Korath, weaving through crumbling defense towers and broken satellite stations. The air was thick with the smell of burning metal as explosions rumbled in the distance. The Alliance forces had succeeded in disabling the Empire's outer defenses, but they knew the toughest challenge was yet to come. "We're almost there," Ilara said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "All ships, prepare for the final assault." Katra's voice crackled through the comms. "We're with you, Ilara. We'll follow your lead." Ilara took a deep breath, her mind focused. The final command center of the Zair Empire, located deep underground, was their target. It was heavily fortified, surrounded by layers of steel and energy shields. But Earth's fleet had something the Empire had underestimated: the power of unity and the courage to stand together against tyranny. As they approached the command center, the Zair forces began to regroup, sending reinforcements to stop the Alliance's advance. The enemy ships, massive and powerful, swarmed toward the fleet, firing blasts of energy that shook the skies. The Alliance ships returned fire, their weapons flashing brightly as they moved in close formation. "This is it," Ilara shouted, rallying her crew. "We've come this far, and we're not stopping now." The fleet dove toward the command center's underground entrance. The ground shook as the Zair began to unleash their most powerful weapons, trying to halt the Alliance's progress. But Earth's ships pressed forward, determined to reach their goal. The surface team, led by Katra and a group of elite soldiers, had already infiltrated the area, planting charges on key structures. They were preparing to blow open the final barrier that stood between them and the heart of the Zair Empire's power. "We're ready," Katra's voice echoed in Ilara's ear. "On your mark." Ilara gave a firm nod. Now, with a series of controlled explosions, the last barrier fell. The ground trembled, and the entrance to the command center was revealed. The Alliance fleet quickly descended, landing in the heart of the Empire's stronghold. The time for subtlety was over. This was the final confrontation. As Ilara and her team made their way through the dark corridors of the Zair command center, they could feel the weight of history pressing down on them. This was the moment that would decide the fate of the galaxy. The Zair leaders, once thought invincible, were now in hiding, scrambling to regroup their forces. They had underestimated the rebellion's strength. Earth and its allies had risen up, and the Empire's once unshakable grip was slipping. "This ends here," Ilara said, her voice cold with determination. For Earth, for every world that has suffered. They reached the central control room, where the final battle awaited. Xer guards, desperate to protect their empire, rushed to meet them. But the Alliance was stronger, united in their cause. The Xer could no longer stand against the sheer will of those who fought for freedom. Ilara's hand gripped her weapon as the last of the Xer forces were defeated. The command center was in their control. The heart of the Empire had fallen. "Victory is ours," Katra said, a sense of pride in his voice. Ilara stood tall, looking out at the broken remains of the once mighty empire. The fight had been long, and the losses had been great, but in the end, they had succeeded. The Xer Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, was no more. But the work was not over. The galaxy had been shattered by war, and it would take time to rebuild. Ilara knew that peace would not come easily, but she also knew that the Alliance had laid the foundation for a new future. As the fleet prepared to return to Earth, Ilara stood on the bridge of the Independence, staring out into the stars. The battle had been won, but the journey was far from over. A new era was dawning, one where every world had a voice, and every species had a chance at freedom. "The galaxy will be different now," she said softly, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "We've shown them that they can't break us. We've shown them that humanity, Earth, will never kneel." Her words rang true. The rebellion had started as a fight for survival, but it had become something much more. It had become a fight for the future, a future where no empire could ever again dominate the galaxy. The spirit of resistance had won, and the dawn of a new era had arrived. Earth had refused to kneel, and now the entire galaxy would rise with them.